boys and girls. Today during our story time, we are going to talk about some seasons. So we talked about a long time ago that seasons are times of the year. We've learned about fall and we've learned about winter, and now we're in a new season. A couple weeks ago, we started the season of spring. So today we're going to read a book about spring. This book is called When Spring Comes. So we're going to read this book and talk about spring. And then we're going to talk about winter, the season we just finished, and spring. And we've talked about winter a little bit. We know that winter is cold. We know that it snows and that the trees don't have leaves on them during winter. But things are different in spring. So this book today is going to help us to see what is different about spring and how things change. And then we're going to do some work on our chart, sorting things that happen in winter and things that look like winter and things that look like spring. Okay, so let's get started reading our story. Like I said, our book is called When Spring Comes. It's by Kevin Henkes and it's illustrated by Laura Dronzek. Look at all these pictures, all of the things that we see in spring, like flowers and butterflies and birds and bees. I see some raindrops and umbrellas, some baby birds in their nest. Those must be all kinds of things that we see in spring. When spring comes. Before spring comes, the trees look like black sticks against the sky. I see snow in this picture, and I see the bare trees. The trees don't have any leaves. They have some snow on them. There's a few birds sitting in those trees. This must be winter. But if you wait, spring will bring leaves and blossoms. I remember that word blossom. We learned that word a long time ago. Remember, a blossom is another word for flower, a fancy word for flower. That's what blossom means. So there are some blossoms in the trees and down on the ground. If you wait, spring will make the leftover mounds of snow smaller and smaller and smaller, and suddenly they're gone. Before spring comes, the grass is brown. But if you wait, spring will turn it green and add little flowers. I know the grass at my house has been brown like this for a long time now. And I've noticed in the last couple weeks, it's starting to turn green like this. And I've seen little flowers coming up in some grass around my house. So that tells me that spring is here. If you wait, an egg will become a bird. See the bird, it hatched. That's another word we learned at school was hatch. A seed will start growing. There's the roots and sprouts. Remember, a sprout is a baby plant. We talked about that too at school. Spring comes with sun, and it comes with rain, and more rain, and more rain. Do you like mud? Do you like puddles? I hope you like umbrellas. All that rain that comes in the spring helps the flowers to grow and the grass to turn green, but it mixes with our dirt and makes mud and puddles. We need umbrellas to keep us dry. It's fun to play in those mud puddles too. Before spring comes, the garden is just dirt and empty. But if you wait, spring will push green shoots through the dirt to fill up the garden. There's a little bunny in that garden too. So this book called these things green shoots. And shoots are kind of like sprouts. We talked about sprouts, sprouts are baby plants. A shoot is just another word for a sprout. And spring will call out the pussy willows and new kittens too. See the branches of this willow tree getting little buds on them. They're growing new leaves and flowers. Spring can come quickly or slowly. It changes its mind a lot. These are daffodils. I've seen daffodils in my neighborhood a lot lately in the last couple weeks. But you'll see that sometimes those daffodils get covered in snow. That's the thing about spring. Sometimes it's really nice and warm, but like our book said, it changes its mind. Sometimes it still gets cold and snows a little bit, and the flowers get covered in snow. But when spring is finally here to stay, you will know it. There will be buds and bees and boots and bubbles. Buds, we've said that word a lot now, is just a flower that hasn't opened. We talked about flowers open up into a blossom, but before they do, they're closed up before their petals open up. And those are called buds. There will be worms and wings and wind and wheels. So everyone's out playing. When this weather starts getting warmer, people can go outside and play. You will feel it. You will smell it. You will hear it. When spring is finally here to stay, you might think you are done waiting, but you are not. Now you have to wait for summer. So after spring comes summer. The end. And there are all of the things that we can look forward to for summer. Fireworks and maybe riding in boats and playing in the water. Our flip-flops and popsicles. Fruit and vegetables growing. All of those things to look forward to in summer. But let's think some more about spring, and let's go back a couple pages to this page that said, you will feel it. You will feel spring. You will smell it. You will hear it. Let's think about that. How do we feel spring? Well, I know that in spring, things start getting warmer outside. The air is not cold like it is in winter, so we can feel the warm air on our skin during spring. You will smell it. All of these flowers in the trees and growing up out of the ground have a sweet smell to them. So we can smell the flowers as they bloom. That's how we smell spring. And it says we will hear spring. How do we hear spring? So I've noticed in the last few weeks that the birds in the trees around where I live have started chirping and singing. I didn't hear many birds during winter because the birds don't like to come out and play when it's cold. Now that it's warmer and the leaves on the trees are growing, the birds are back and they're singing. So you can hear the birds. You can also hear the insects that are starting to come back and fly around. So that's the way we can hear spring. We can feel it, we can smell it, we can hear it, and we can, of course, can see it. All those beautiful flowers and the green grass, all of that. I really like this book. I hope you enjoyed it. It's got some really cool pictures too. So I learned a lot about spring from that book. I hope you did. And so now let's sort some pictures. I've got some pictures of winter and some pictures of spring. And we're going to put them on the right side of our chart. So here it says winter. We'll put things that look like winter on this side. And then this side says spring, so we'll put those on this side. So let's look at our first picture. First we have a little branch with some berries on it. And it looks like there's some ice or snow, icicles on that branch. So I know that when it's really cold and it's cold enough for snow and ice, it's usually winter. So I'm going to put this on the winter side of our chart. Let's look at the next picture. Next we have a little squirrel eating some seeds that someone's put out for him. And I notice in the background of this picture there's grass. And the grass is green. Our book told us that in the winter grass is brown, but in the spring it turns green. I also see some flowers blooming. So this must be spring. Let's put it over here on our spring side. Let's look at the next picture. Oh, I see some little flowers coming out of the ground. These are just buds. Remember we talked about that word in our book that we read? The flowers that are still closed, their petals haven't opened up to bloom into a full blossom. So these are flower buds coming out of the ground. And I see some grass. So if we see flower buds and green grass, we know that it is winter or spring. Spring. So this one will go on this side. Next on our picture is a snow-covered road. And there are trees alongside that road that's covered in snow, and the trees have snow on them too. Do you see any leaves on those trees? No leaves. So if there's no leaves on the tree and there's lots of snow, it must be winter. Let's put this picture on the winter side. Our next picture, oh, this one's really pretty. Lots of trees and some green grass, a pretty blue sky. So I see green grass. I know our book told us that grass turns green in spring. So, but let's look closely at those trees. Do they have a lot of leaves on them? I see some leaves, but not a lot. I can still kind of see through the trees really easily, but there is some green starting to grow. Trees just have their baby leaves, brand new leaves that are growing. So they don't have very many, but you can see a few. And the grass is green. So baby leaves on the trees and green grass means winter or spring. Spring. There we go. Next picture is a bird. Looks like that bird is sitting on some branches, maybe in a tree. And this one's difficult because we talked about we hear birds and the birds come out during the spring. But let's look closely at those branches. In spring, we should see some flowers or some leaves budding out on that tree, on those tree limbs. Do we see any leaves on the branches of this tree? No leaves, no flowers either. So that must mean that it is winter. Let's put this picture on our winter side of our chart. Oh, next, another little squirrel. But this squirrel is surrounded by snow. Now we did say, we read in our book and we talked about spring can change its mind. Sometimes it's warm and sometimes it's cold and it snows. But I don't see any signs of spring in this picture. I don't see any green grass. I don't see any trees with leaves. I don't see any little flower buds peeking out of the snow. It's just snow, covered in snow. So that must mean it's winter. Let's put this picture on our winter side. We have one more picture. Let's see what it is. Oh, wow. It's a little nest with some eggs inside. See those eggs right there? And I see some leaves. This must be in a tree because there's green leaves growing around it. Looks like some branches there. So we know that the trees grow leaves in the spring that are turning green. And it said that little eggs will start to hatch. So those birds are laying their eggs in the spring when it's warm. It's warm enough for the eggs to lay there and hatch and for the leaves to grow on the tree. So that must mean that it is spring in this picture. There we go. Good job, guys. We sorted those pictures. We looked at them and saw the different things that we see in those seasons. We saw the things that we see in winter and put those on the winter side. and we looked for the things we see in spring and put those pictures on the spring side of our chart. You guys did a great job sorting with that with me. So, I hope you enjoyed talking about winter and spring, and I hope that you can go outside or look out your window and find some signs of spring. Maybe you will see green grass or some flowers coming out, starting to bloom. You might see some little animals and birds. So go look for those signs of spring and enjoy seeing the new season. All right? Thanks for joining me. We'll see you later.